Your history books lied to you about concentration camps. They told you only fascists built them. Only evil regimes killed innocent people in mass detention centers. But America had concentration camps too. And the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi is where thousands of freed slaves went to die, while the government called it humanitarian aid. Picture a mother watching smallpox devour her baby's face, the child's skin erupting in bloody blisters while she has no medicine, no clean water, nothing but her bare hands to comfort a dying infant. Picture fathers collapsing from heat exhaustion in Mississippi sun, their bodies giving out while their families starve behind prison walls they can't climb. Picture grandparents who survived the whip and the chain, only to rot away in their own waste because there were no doctors, no dignity, no humanity left for black people in the land of the free. The survivors begged on their knees to go back to the plantations. Let that sink into your soul. When slavery looks like mercy compared to freedom, you know that freedom was designed to kill you. But here's what should set your blood on fire. They've been lying about this for 160 years. Every single time our families try to tell the truth about what happened to our ancestors, white historians crawl out to call us liars. They'd rather we shut up and forget that thousands of our people were killed in plain sight while America celebrated abolition. This isn't just about the past. America took what they learned at Devil's Punch Bowl and built an empire on Black Death. This is the blueprint they're still using to destroy us today. 1863. Abraham Lincoln signs a piece of paper and tells 3.5 million enslaved people they're free. But Lincoln himself knew he had no power to end slavery. This was a war trick designed to hurt the South, not save black lives. 4 million people with no money, no land, nothing but the clothes on their backs, suddenly told to survive in a world that wanted them dead. Mississippi immediately passed black codes that made freedom a sick joke. You couldn't testify against a white person in court, couldn't serve on juries, couldn't carry guns to protect your family, get caught without work papers, and you'd be arrested for vagrancy, then sold right back into slavery. The violence started immediately. In Texas alone, white people executed over 1,000 black folks in just 2 years. The Freedmen's Bureau kept a register of killings with reasons like, "Black man didn't tip his hat, so I shot him." These weren't random executions. This was hunting season, and we were the prey. So desperate families did what anyone would do. They packed everything they owned into bundles, put babies on their backs, and started walking north. Hundreds of miles through hostile territory, following whispers that Union soldiers in Natchez, Mississippi would protect them. Natchez was the biggest city in Mississippi, controlled by federal troops, with a river port that promised work and opportunity. What they found was a trap that had been waiting to spring shut on them. Before we continue with what really happened to these families, if you believe these hidden histories need to be told, subscribe to Black Stories Untold. Now, back to the video. Natchez exploded overnight. A sleepy town of 6,612 people suddenly had 120,000 desperate souls packed into every corner. Imagine 18 times more people than your city can handle, all needing food, water, shelter that didn't exist. Union officers took one look at this crisis and saw an opportunity. Ulysses S. Grant, sitting comfortable in his headquarters at the fancy Rosalie Mansion, gave the order to build contraband camps. That word tells you everything. Contraband means property stolen from the enemy. Even free, we were still just things to be managed. They found the perfect spot, the Devil's Punch Bowl. Nature had carved a massive pit surrounded by limestone cliffs so tall and steep that once you went down, you never came back up. It was like God had built a prison, and white folks just had to fill it with black bodies. Look at the Union Army maps from 1864. They show these camps laid out like cattle pens across the countryside. The Devil's Punch Bowl held the most people, packed so tight that families slept standing up. They don't show children dying of diseases that clean water could have prevented. They don't show mothers burying babies with their bare hands because nobody gave them shovels. The soldiers called it humanitarian aid. The people trapped inside called it hell. Every morning before sunrise, armed guards marched the men out like chain gangs. Mississippi heat that could kill a horse, and they worked these fathers and sons until they dropped. Meanwhile, women and children stayed trapped in the pit with almost nothing to eat, drinking river water so filthy it turned their stomachs inside out. Smallpox hit like wildfire. Picture your baby burning with fever, then red spots covering their tiny body, then blisters full of pus that burst and left permanent scars. That's if they lived. Most didn't. Mothers held dead children in their arms for hours because there was nowhere to put the bodies. No one who cared enough to help them dig graves. Historian Ron Davis found the records. In the fall of 1863, 2,000 had already perished in just the main camp. 2,000 human beings dead in months. That's entire family lines wiped out. Generations of dreams and memories buried in unmarked holes. When your loved one finally died, they wouldn't even let you bury them proper. Guards handed you a shovel and pointed at the ground. Dig here. Bury them where they dropped. No prayers, no coffins, no markers to remember they ever existed. Just dump the body and get back to work. Some people broke completely. They crawled to the guards on their knees, begging to be sent back to the plantations. "Please," they cried, "let us go back to our masters." When slavery looks like salvation, you know freedom was designed to torture you. Here's the math that exposes the crime. Over 100,000 black people flooded into Natchez during the refugee crisis. By 1870, the census counted only 5,329 black residents total in the entire city. Where did nearly 95,000 people disappear to in less than a decade? They didn't relocate. They didn't find work elsewhere. They vanished from every official record like they never existed. No death certificates, no burial records, no acknowledgement that these were human beings with names and families who loved them. Paula Westbrook, the former founder of Southern Paranormal and Anomaly Research Society, SPARS, spent years documenting what really happened, collecting testimonies from families who preserved the truth through oral tradition. These communities knew exactly where the mass burial sites were located. They warned their children away from certain areas of land. The disappearance of nearly 100,000 people represents one of the largest undocumented mass elimination events in American history. Yet it barely registers in textbooks because the people who died were black, and the people who killed them wore American uniforms. When communities started sharing their preserved memories of Devil's Punchbowl, historians rushed to shut them up. Roscoe Barnes told Yahoo News that most of the information being promoted out there simply is not true. Scholar Sir Boxley called it concocted Confederate propaganda. Notice the playbook? Every time black people document systematic atrocities against us, academic institutions send experts to explain why our testimony doesn't count. They demand higher standards of proof from us than they require for any other historical claims. They'll write books based on one white person's diary, but need signed confessions from murderers before they'll believe black people were systematically killed. The Tulsa Race Massacre got called a riot for decades. Medical experiments on black people got dismissed as isolated incidents. Lynching numbers always get questioned and minimized. Every documented atrocity against black folks faces the same academic skepticism that never applies to claims that make white institutions look good. This systematic minimization serves one purpose: protecting the myth that America has made moral progress by denying the continuity of systematic violence against black people. They can't admit Devil's Punchbowl was intentional elimination, because then they'd have to admit the system is still operating. What happened to Devil's Punchbowl wasn't an accident. It was an evolution. For over 200 years, white America had been perfecting the art of turning black bodies into profit. On plantations, they forced enslaved women to breed like cattle, counting babies as dollar signs before they could even walk. White women sat on porches sipping tea while personally ordering the beating of black women who worked their fields and raised their children. The refugee camp model added plausible deniability to this extraction system. Promise humanitarian assistance, create deadly conditions, then claim the deaths were unintentional. This became the template for every system of black population control that followed. Urban redlining promised black families the American dream of homeownership, then drew red lines around their neighborhoods and choked them to death with poverty. Each time, the method got more sophisticated, but the core remained the same. Trap us, use us, profit from our pain, then deny responsibility when we die from the conditions they created. The genius lies in operating under the cover of legitimate institutions: humanitarian aid, criminal justice, housing policy, and economic development. Today's mass incarceration system is the perfected evolution of Devil's Punchbowl. America locks up black people at rates so wildly disproportionate to population and actual crime that no explanation except systematic population control makes sense. Walk into Louisiana State Penitentiary today, and you'll see Devil's Punchbowl perfected. It sits on an actual plantation, where black people used to pick cotton as slaves. Now, it operates as a modern slave labor camp, where predominantly black prisoners work for pennies, generating millions for the state. Same field, same black hands, doing white people's work. Private prison corporations make billions from human cages, with the same overcrowding, inadequate medical care, and family destruction that characterize the refugee camps. Environmental racism extends the camp model into entire neighborhoods. Drive through any black neighborhood, and you'll smell the poison they pump into our air. Chemical plants that would never be allowed near white suburbs get built right next to our schools and playgrounds. Our kids develop asthma at twice the rate of white children, but when we complain, they tell us we're imagining things. Flint, Michigan's poisoned water exemplifies this systematic targeting, disguised as municipal governance. Food deserts ensure malnutrition in black neighborhoods. Try to buy fresh food in our neighborhoods, and you'll find nothing but gas stations selling chips and soda. Meanwhile, white suburbs get Whole Food stores and farmers markets on every corner. They create food deserts, then scratch their heads wondering why we have higher rates of diabetes and heart disease. While academic institutions erase Devil's Punchbowl from official history, black communities preserve the truth through oral tradition. Families pass down specific knowledge about burial sites, warned children away from haunted areas, maintained detailed accounts of ancestors' suffering across generations. These community historians created alternative archives when white institutions refused to document black experiences. Research by Paula Westbrook revealed extensive testimonies, including accounts of physical evidence, like human remains, surfacing during storms and floods. Every story preserved weakens the silence that allows systematic violence to flourish. Look around you right now. Every black person reading this has probably watched a family member disappear into the prison system, or gotten sick from pollution in their neighborhood, or struggled to find fresh food in a community surrounded by fast food chains and liquor stores. These aren't coincidences. They're the modern version of what happened at Devil's Punchbowl. Real accountability requires more than admitting historical wrongs. It demands actively dismantling institutions that continue generating the same results. Mass incarceration, environmental racism, educational apartheid, and economic exclusion all operate according to the same logic that created the death camps. Every white person watching this has a choice too. You can keep benefiting from systems built on our graves while telling yourself you're not responsible for what happened before you were born. But here's the thing. It's still happening. And neutrality enables violence by allowing it to operate without opposition or acknowledgement. The dead at Devil's Punchbowl couldn't tell their stories, but their experiences inform present resistance to the same forces. Every suppressed story exposed weakens the machinery of elimination that's been operating for over 160 years. Devil's Punchbowl reveals America's true relationship with black life. Extract maximum value. Discard the person when no longer profitable. Erase evidence of what was done. Whether thousands or hundreds died matters less than understanding the system that created conditions where human beings could be eliminated and erased from history. The voices from Devil's Punchbowl are finally being heard through testimonies preserved by communities who refuse to let ancestors be forgotten. The question facing every American is whether they're ready to listen and act on what those voices reveal about this country's ongoing war against Black life. If this story exposed how deep these systems go, subscribe to Black Stories Untold and share this video with others who need to understand this history.